It's chapter 7. Mind of an Asiatic, homie. Yo. See, any other time, I wouldn't pay you any mind. Put my best foot forward in every verse and every line. I used to dream, I used to pray about the day that I get signed into the truth. About this business just blew my mind. I swear to God, I used to think all I needed was a skill. High verse, catchy hook, dope look, then get a deal. I used to love the rock a sold out show just for the thrill until the real was revealed to my spirit like Jabril. I'm iconic.
Yeah, they say they want this more science, so I'ma give it to them. Islamism, no illusions when I'm interviewing. Know what I'm doing, no confusion, I ain't into crooning. I'm in the moving units, out here starting revolutions. In love with shooters, making masterminds out the goonies. I got them booming out here, zooming on the plane of soul. I tell them take me to the grove, they like Islam mode. I'm letting them know this not a show, this all systems go. It's two selves, one man, both high and low. I'm so spiritual, the indigos feel the vibe. I'm so lyrical, a miracle that I survive. Extend my 5 to the 4, I can see him coming. Plus my angel got the angle with the engine running. It's all justice, freedom, peace, truth, and love.
All right, Moors. I wanted to share something with you. Make sure you go to the Bandcamp for my brother Euphony Bars. He just dropped the song. It's called Remember Granada. This song is banging. I mean, it's great. It's amazing. And he just dropped this. We're going to go ahead and play this here. But make sure you go to Bandcamp and just go to euphonybars.bandcamp.com and listen to that track. Support the artist. Buy that digital track. It's only $3. Remember Granada. Once you hear it, you're going to want to go and support. So we're going to play this right now, Morris. Check this out.
Imagine all the tears cried. I watch our adversaries try to rob us blind, but we still thrive. Piece together fragments like magnets. They food filled with maggots and make something elaborate. Give me a second, I'ma take you back. We was never black, never black. Women block predicated that. His racist acts was like the Thanos snap. Till you face the facts, Euphony is rapping like a maniac. The ancestors is the author. Watch me conjuring a present to the altar. For the fathers, mothers, brothers, and daughters that taught us when we weren't even thought of. Before the pirates murdered, traded, and bought us with their marauders. Pure carnage, metalama, and people acting heartless. The Punic Wars was upon us from here to Carthage, and they kept on acting pompous to the Crusades and onward. And Granada's where we lost it. Remember Granada, this for the mothers, brothers, daughters, and fathers. Remember Granada, don't let the ancestors think we forgot it. Remember Granada, this for the mothers, brothers, daughters, and fathers. Remember Granada, don't let the ancestors think we forgot it. While Europe suffered with the Black Plague, we had high science, fly fashion, precise military tactics, but still showed honor and compassion. When our tribes was clashing, life was fantastic. Romantic Aphrodite passion helped establish amalgamated factions. We were magistrates, now we're has-beens. The slave trade was established. They only teach half this in the history classes. The discovery doctrine was concocted to steal the land for God, but then murder for profit. We the offspring of the people they conquered. That's not the knowledge that they teach you in college. I'm a product of Juwali the prophet. He was wise for shedding light on these topics. We study law and the light from the comics. Your stolen birthright is the true economics. Just know Granada's where we lost it. As foretold by the prophets. Remember Granada, this for the mothers, brothers, daughters, and fathers. Remember Grenada. Don't let the ancestors think we forgot. Remember Grenada. This for the mothers, brothers, daughters, and fathers. Remember Grenada. Don't let the ancestors think we forgot.
All right, make sure you go to euphonybars.bandcamp.com. Support, that's a great track, and I love it, and he's dropping knowledge too. And we are about to get started, Morris.
I am not a Negro, black, colored, African American. I'm a Moorish American. Peace.
Yeah. Hey, 5 on the right, 2 on the left, man. You know what time it is. Yo. We just Moors in America, soar through the shores and endure criminal acts of war on our character. 7 years after the 4th score, no reward. Shout out to the most courageous, they was jumping over barriers. Where does that compare to you? We come from a place where you scared to visit our area. We come from a place where it's scary for good Samaritans. Heavy luggage we carrying, babies having babies. It's crazy being American. Praise the one and only Allah, there's no comparison. La ilaha illa Allah, body and buried gin. Laughing at you clowns like ha-ha, dodging the Nephilim. Conquer lower self with the high, follow your regimen. Way before they came we were gods, and now we specimen. Tried to take the light from our eyes, thank God for Edison. Then they put the wool on our eyes, it's so embarrassing. Now we travel frequently, we should invest in Sheraton. All of us got gold on our bodies whenever we stepping in. Screaming Ramadan, Mubarak, training the flesh again. Wishing we could move as a unit just like the Mexicans, dodging all the foods with estrogen, synthetic medicines. All sin isn't devilish. Sometimes the decisions that you make come for a better gift. Sometimes when you sin is to relate to all your brethren. Heavenly gates all in our face, we the champions. We live in the sky, we see the angels on the chariots, waiting on the $20 bill, facing Harriet. I bet you I'ma carry it. I'm in love with music to the point I wanna marry it. But my love for people is greater, so I write messages. Largest spending power, but we still sit at a deficit. Living amongst prejudice, even at our residence. Moors in America, flourishing, excellent. Let's buy up some neighborhoods and groom our own president. Yeah. And I come to you today with all intentions of spreading love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
All right, peace, Moors. I want to thank everybody for joining us. This video that you're watching represents the views of the presenters and our guests and is based off of our own personal research and life experience. In no way is this content endorsed by or an official representation of any other organizations. We do want to rise and give the highest praise to the Most High, Creator of the universe, our Father God Allah. We extend honors to our divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, and we also extend in honors to everything Moorish, and we send out love to everybody out there, to all the light bringers. Okay, I want to say honors to everybody out there that is dedicated to bringing light and truth to the world, to awakening humanity. All the light bringers watching right now, peace to all of you. We have our esteemed guest today. It's Sister Michelle Gibson. She has an amazing array of videos, documentaries on her YouTube channel. The link for her channel is in the description. Make sure you go and check out her channel and subscribe after you watch this video. Okay, and she's going to be bringing some great information. So I just want to say good evening to everybody. You're listening to the True and Living Light Bringer Moors in America. As always, I'm your brother, Lloyd Douglas L. also known as Sharif Ali. And here we are uncovering and bringing glorious light to all issues pertinent to the Moorish American paradigm. That's what we do here on this podcast known as Moors in America. So I hope everyone's having a great evening. If you wouldn't mind, make sure you share this broadcast on your favorite social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff. Okay? And when we come back, we're going to expand further on the topic. We're talking about things that I would say the mainstream is shunning. They're not even discussing this. This isn't being discussed in our history classes. And it's very important that we, the people, speak about this because nobody else is going to do it. It's up to us to educate ourselves properly. So it's amazing. We're going to talk about the resets that have happened, mud floods. I mean, an amazing topic. So if you've never heard of any of this stuff, you're definitely going to want to watch and you're going to want to share. So make sure you grab a friend, grab family, share this with everybody. Okay. And as we return, we will be getting started, and we're getting started right now. All right. Hello, Michelle. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to be a guest on your show.
Yes. Thank you for coming on. I just want to say I've seen some of the videos on your channel. I'm subscribed. Once again, for everyone listening, make sure you go to her YouTube. The channel is actually in the description. So she has a lot of documentaries on there. Basically, she's uncovering hidden history, some things that are like right in our plain view that we don't see. We don't really know how to discern what we're walking by on a regular basis. Okay. And it's just great what you do. I love it. And if you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this line of research.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. And let me first say that I wholeheartedly embrace the Moorish paradigm. And my work is based on that understanding. And I have been blogging and making videos for almost 4 years now. And I had never blogged or made a video in my life until June of 2018. And at the same time, I think I've had this information coming to me from my earliest memories. So I feel like I was incarnated to do this work just because the way my life has gone, places I've lived, people that I've met, things that I've been interested in, ancient history, hidden history, history's mysteries, ley lines, dowsing. And that was where I first started to get my education on the Earth's grid system. Was from, thank goodness for the internet and a lot of really good Earth energy researchers out there. I would watch Megalithomania presentations, which is a conference that is organized by a man in England, and so I'm learning about these energy lines and how the same thing is in Turkey that's in South America. And this is early on in my research. you know, the deeper I go into it, the more I understand. And we've been lied to about everything. But for me, okay, so there's a lot of things that happen, but um, if I go back to one of my earliest memories, I was about 7 or 8 years old, and my dad would play uh, he was on the church softball team, and their practice field was right next to a wooded area, and I wasn't interested in watching the softball, so I'd go down in the woods, and there were some really big stones that I used to play around. And once I started to do this work, I look back on that as being megalithic stones. I lived in a place called Rockville in Maryland. This is in Rock Creek. And these clues are in our language, place names, Stony Hill or whatever. Um, this is part of what's hidden in plain sight. There's megalithic stone blocks everywhere, literally everywhere. Taunting us, but not telling us about this original civilization. And until you tune into it, you don't even realize you're there. I mean, check out in front of a Starbucks or, convenience store someday near where you live. You'll see big megalithic stone blocks that are just like laying around. I first woke up to it in Oklahoma City. And after that, I started noticing them everywhere. So, what brought the Moors into my life was having a Moorish American friend when I moved to Oklahoma City. And I had already had this interest in ancient history, like I was talking about, in megaliths and what we haven't been told. And meeting my friend Pharaoh Osiris was how I learned about the Moors. I mean, really learned about the Moors. And with all the other research that I was doing and things that had happened, it just all came together, and it's the only thing that makes sense. That this was a civilization.
I'm sorry. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
It looks like you were breaking up. Your
Okay.
audio's breaking up.
Okay. How is it now?
You're good now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So I had a Moorish American friend in Oklahoma City who brought the stream in about the Moors for me, and then everything just clicked and made sense. That this civilization was the same worldwide. It was built out along sacred geometry and aligning heaven and earth. And you see that with older megaliths, archaeoastronomy, where they're lined up with like the solstice and the equinox and the Milky Way and whatever. And that goes on up into modern times. The modern buildings are lined up, north, south, east, west, and perfectly aligned to these events and to full moons and things like that. The Statue of Liberty is. You can look up things. Pyramids are everywhere. Where is that picked? Miamisburg Mound in Ohio.
Oh yeah, yeah. This one, in southern Ohio. It's pretty impressive too. But like you were saying, we can just walk by this and think that maybe it's a hill, or especially if it hasn't been cleared out, if there's trees growing on it, and there's things like this, like you were saying, all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Literally all over the place. There's some places that are called mounds, but mounds are everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, you'll see tank farms and things like that sitting on top of earthworks. There's some kind of energy component to it. Our modern energy system is based on this ancient technology. But what really, really got my own work going, and this is a place where I want to share my screen, is when I was living in Oklahoma City. A friend of mine that I would travel with had given me a map, and it was on my dining room table. And as I was looking at it, I noticed cities lining up in lines. And I had learned about sacred geometry sometime around 2006, 2007. I had taken a Flower of Life workshop. I was living in Fairbanks, Alaska at the time. And it was during this time period that I really, really started to wake up. I mean, I would consider myself an aware person most of my life, but I really started waking up to higher consciousness, unity consciousness, starting around 2006, 2007. And it's kind of been an upward curve ever since. But because I had the exposure to sacred geometry, I was able to find a star tetrahedron by connecting the cities in North America. And I found the first one, and I thought, well, gee, I wonder if I can find another one. And that was when I found the bottom one with the apex in Merida. So the northern one, the apex is in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I extended the lines out. The education I had received up to that point had taught me that the ancients were very precise in their alignments, and other people had found alignments, circle alignments around the world and things like that. So I was already aware of that. So I extended the lines, and then I wrote down the places on spreadsheets. And let me get out of here real quick. And so this is where my research started. And these are all places in alignment. And then the next page, they're all in alignment. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get this information out. How am I going to show people what I'm seeing? Because when I started looking at the places, I'm like, holy cow, everything's the same all over the earth. And, I'm a good writer, so that was a natural way for me to do it. It took about 2 years. So I found the star tetrahedron in 2016, and I started blogging in 2018, which was when I made my first video. And I was only going to make one video, and then somebody subscribed to my channel. I thought, well, gee, I better make more videos.
Yeah.
And I just started turning my blog posts into videos. And I've been doing it consistently for over 3 years, like I said. And probably at least one a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I got a bunch of them. And as I was following the alignments and doing research, the whole sordid story of how the original civilization was taken down and replaced by what we've been taught, in our day and age, took place. And the who, the what, the how, the when, the why, just came out in the research. And then I started extrapolating that information and putting it together in themes. And that started just from tracking the alignments that I found. And it's really been an incredible journey. And the people that find me, that find my work, find my channel, and stick with it are like, they know something's wrong and they want to know what the truth is. And a lot of people talk about Tartaria, and Tartaria was in Asia, part of the Moorish civilization. And that's how most people know it. And I think the reason for that is because a lot of the original research came out of Russia, from Russian researchers, which would have been part of Tartaria. And I'm like, well, Tartaria was part of it. It's not the other way around. And so it's still a bit of an education process on it being Moorish, and bringing back the original civilization and how sophisticated and beautiful it was. And I believe it was taken out by a mud flood. I know you referenced that. I didn't know anything about the mud flood until a mutual subscriber connected me with somebody that was researching mud flood in Baltimore. And when I saw his work, which was about 2019, I want to say the spring of 2019, I thought, well, geez, we're looking at the same thing. We're looking at the same buildings. And so my personal belief is that a cataclysm was deliberately created by the 13 bloodlines, the whoever we call the controllers, the elites, the 1%, was done so they could take over the grid, so they could take over humanity, steal the legacy, steal money, steal dignity. They're not nice beings at all, which is an understatement. They're very dark, very evil, and I think they saw an opportunity to try to. This is against the creator and creation. I mean, it's, and I don't think they're going to get away with it, but it's almost like they almost did.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I mean, that's what the cover up, is all about, keeping us in the dark. Before you get any deeper, though, I want to just say something and just share something briefly, especially for people who are new to this. Okay, like when you're talking about Tartaria and you're saying that that's Moorish civilization, and even like just implying that there were Moors over here in America pre-colonization, that made a lot to take in for some people, but I want to share something with you. This is from the book Discovering the Mysteries of Ancient America, and Legends Unearthed and Unexplored. So in here is speaking about artifacts that were found in Brazil in the 1800s and in the not 1800s, in the 1600s. Okay, and I'm just going to share this briefly. So now these types of artifacts are found all over the place. This is speaking about Phoenician artifacts found in the Americas. It was speaking about things that were found in Massachusetts, but then it's saying that in the along the Brazilian coast, there were minted coins that were found, right? And also stones. A stone covered with Phoenician letters was discovered in Brazil. It says about 120 years ago. And it's saying that the inscription was found by Brazilian slaves during the early 1870s, called the Parabia text. It recounts the voyage of Phoenician merchants who traveled from Sidon in the 6th century BC. And it was branded a fraud, but they did further research on it, and they confirmed that the inscriptions were authentic, right? There were passages that were thought to be erroneous, but they have been verified later on with identical inscriptions of bona fide Phoenician artifacts. And there were things that were on there that they didn't even understand completely. They couldn't even accurately translate in the 1600s, right? Until they got more artifacts later on. Okay. And in 1641, Jesuits living near Minas Gerais, Brazil, reported bronze figurines with a strange writing. They come to find out later on the Vatican identified the descriptions as Phoenician. So things like this weren't supposed to be found over here in the Americans. Okay. In the Americas. That just doesn't fit the timeline that we're given. That doesn't fit what we're taught in school, what's still being taught, even at the university level. So change needs to occur. We have to do the work. And on that note, I yield the floor.
All very important points. And the lies go deep. We're talking Jesuits, we're talking Freemasons, we're talking Oddfellows, we're talking Knights of Pythias. In terms of how this whole new narrative was brought in. I mean, it's like the 19th century, from, let's say, around the beginning of 1800 to the beginning of 1900s was, I believe, was a reset century. And that was when they were setting the stage, if you will, for this whole new narrative. And every building has a story. Every bridge has a story. And thank goodness the internet came along. Like I said earlier, it's like I wouldn't be able to do this research without it. And once you start looking at what they tell us in the narrative, talk about questioning the narrative, it falls apart. It's ludicrous. And I've done research on Western movies not too long ago, because I know that that's fake. And how all of that came about, I call the John Wayne version of history. But I'm also calling it the Laurel and Hardy version of history, because there's a lot of that in there too.
Yeah.
With what they tell us about about certain things. It's like just ridiculous stories. And once you start actually looking at it, any old buildings in your community, it'll have a story. It might have a date carved over the door or in a foundation stone or whatever, but it's like that's all it is. They didn't build it. Same thing with a lot of the bridges, like the Brooklyn Bridge, and a lot of the older bridges were not built by the people that took credit for it. And let me go ahead and share my screen. I might as well. It's like there's so many things that it's more compelling to show you what I'm talking about than talk about it. So let me just show you the solar alignment of the Statue of Liberty.
All right. And when you showed like the tetrahedron, star tetrahedron, it lined up with the cities in North America. Were these cities were they on ley lines?
I believe so. I mean, I think it was built with a very definite it was built according to geometric and astronomical principles. So I think the ancients probably groomed the energy lines in some way. I mean, it's amazing. Because I've got so many examples, so you'll have to forgive me. So this is the solar alignment with the Statue of Liberty. But not only do you see it with the Statue of Liberty, you see it with Capitol buildings. You see it with mosques. You see it with churches. You see it with lighthouses. Lighthouses were doing something more than guiding ships. Everything was in perfect alignment. I mean, I've done some research on it right now. I'm just typing in things to give you some examples so you can see here on the right the perfect alignment. I mean, perfect.
Yeah, I see that definitely. Yeah.
But it's like that all over the world. Taj Mahal. You see it with the Taj Mahal. And I mean, it's like I said, it's everywhere. Everything was in perfect alignment. I believe that the whole civilization was in harmony and balance. I think that's what the 12 tribes were about. That the layout of the civilization was also according to sacred geometry. I'm trying to think of some other examples. Let me stop sharing here real quick. I just wanted to give you an idea of what Manhattan Hinge. Are you familiar with Manhattan Hinge?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay, so Manhattan Hinge is the alignment around the solstices of the street grid of New York City or of Manhattan. And this is in other cities as well. I want to look it up.
Wow. Okay.
Called the Manhattan Solstice is an event during which the setting sun or the rising sun is aligned with the east-west street grids of the main street grid of Manhattan in New York City.
Wow.
I mean, this is a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it has its own Wikipedia page. Wow. Yeah, and I've never heard of that.
So everything was laid out perfectly. And that wasn't done randomly. And they want us to believe that things were done randomly. And it's like, no.
Yeah. So definitely, when you say things like, for example, saying that the Brooklyn Bridge wasn't built, I guess you could say by Western civilization. So you're insinuating that it's older?
I'm
Could you
insinuating it was
explain that for, I guess, for people that are new to this type of information?
okay. I'm insinuating it was built by the original civilization, which would be the Moorish civilization. And the same thing with rail lines, subways, streetcars, the whole 9 yards. It was all interconnected. It was all part of the grid. Free energy generating system. So I'm going to show you the Roebling Bridge in Cincinnati, and then I'm going to show you the Brooklyn Bridge.
All right.
Okay, this one is in Cincinnati. Beautiful, beautiful old bridge.
Yeah.
And the credit for it was given to a German-American engineer. And it was said to have been built around the time of the Civil War.
Huh.
Okay, let me find a date. So 1856 to 1867 is when we're told it was built.
Yeah.
And the Civil War was supposed to have been between 1861 and 1865.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm talking about when I say the story falls apart when you start looking into it. How were they building that during the Civil War?
Yeah.
First
yeah,
question.
so we have these steel cables up here too. Yeah.
And then the Brooklyn Bridge kind of has a similar story. The same idea. Beautiful stone masonry. And it was supposed to have been built also by the same guy. Same man that built the bridge in Cincinnati.
Yeah. Wow, that's and is it like the same timeline? So there's I think Penn Station in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the old Penn Station, because I don't think it looks like that anymore. But the older architecture was like, it was immaculate.
It's amazing. This is the old Penn Station. And what they want you to believe is that it was only standing for 60 years from 1910 to 1963, and then they tore it down. And they give credit to McKim, Mead, and White, which got credit for a lot of buildings. And they want us to believe that was built in 1910.
And I've seen some of the pictures where like the ceilings, everything's like in this Gothic style, and it's immaculate. And it does make sense, because it's like, if you were able to do that, 150 years ago, why aren't you doing better? Everything done in the style where it's just rectangles, squares. I mean, yeah, that is amazing.
Mm-hmm. So this nice colorized picture of the original Pennsylvania station, I mean, it's a huge building compared to the people in it. And, just this ornate, beautiful architecture with vaulted ceilings and columns and, you name it. And, the other thing I want to show you about bridges is, let me go back to the Brooklyn Bridge real quick, because I want to show you one that's in Constantine, Algeria, which is very similar to the bridge that I showed you. And Constantine is known as the city of bridges.
Okay.
And it's I think I'd probably get what is it called when you're afraid of heights?
Yeah.
I can't think of what it's called, but
I couldn't mess with that.
Constantine is like built on top of this rock, rocky place.
The plateau.
The
Yeah.
plateau. And again, that's ancient infrastructure, I believe, what it's sitting on top of. But we've been conditioned to see that as natural. So I wanted to point out this bridge here in Constantine and compare it to the Brooklyn Bridge. You know, it's not exactly the same, but it's got similar features.
Yeah.
So, you know, whatever they did to bring us what we've been taught was incredibly sophisticated on one hand, and on the other hand, you know, like I said, it just doesn't hold up when you start looking at the details and asking questions. They did something to flip the timeline, and flip the story, you know, flip everything on its head, you know, right down to whitewashing monarchs of Europe. And, you know, you can find clear portraits of King Philip II of Spain as a Moor.
Yeah.
And you also find, you know, the white version of King Philip II.
Yeah.
You know, and they did that with the Stuarts in England. They did that, you know, in a lot of places. The Habsburgs were not white. Or not.
Yeah, definitely. That I've seen that as well. Like just with the changing, you know, the monarch's appearance, and I guess you could say like whitewashing, you know, and sometimes that may have been occurring during their lifetime too, while they were you know, taking portraits. So some of the portraits that were being done, like or the change occurred like right after they died, because some of the pictures I've seen, like the painting, you'll see their hands or their arms, and it's way darker than the, you know, rest of their body. So, you know, just it doesn't match up. So definitely, I've seen that as well. One thing that I wanted to ask you about, I saw like in one of your videos, you were speaking about the similarities in the rivers, like the Mississippi and different rivers here in America, and then also, I guess you could say, like in Egypt, different places in the world. Right. I think you were on your website, and you had some pictures that showed like I guess the similar mouths of the river, you know, just how they're shaped. And then also, oh, were you about to say something? Sorry.
No, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. Also, you had some photos that showed how it was obvious that some of the rivers were man-made. I think it was showing like maybe the Mississippi Delta or in Louisiana. And I just thought it was ironic that, you know, you had that up, because I'm going to share the screen real quickly. Hang on. So in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, in chapter 47, Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa, in verse 8, it says, the river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt, right? It was man-made in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those days for trade, and it extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. And Prophet Noble Drew Ali was teaching this to the so-called Negroes in North America in the 1920s, you know, teaching that these rivers were man-made, that they were created by our ancestors, you know, and they had a purpose. Also that it extended across the Atlantic, which is amazing, because we now know that there are actual, trying to think of the name of it, but you actually have like underwater rivers in the Atlantic, currents now that the sailors knew about it back in the days too, but the people know, like if you're traveling on the Atlantic, if you get on this current, you can ride it all the way, you know, from the Eastern hemisphere to the Western hemisphere and have a smoother ride, right? So there's like underwater rivers or currents. I'm trying to think of the name of it. I can't remember the name, but we had this being taught in the 1920s, right? If this is ancient information that was being returned to us. And I just thought it was funny because I hadn't seen some of the pictures before that you were showing, but it's obvious. For people who are listening or watching, she had pictures of different parts of the Mississippi where the lines were so straight. You know, I mean, the borders of the river were so straight, you could tell that it was man-made. And this is stuff that you can actually see all over the world.
Right, exactly. And not just so there's, I think it's all a canal system. I think all of these so-called river systems are man-made, and we're taught that they're natural. So, you know, again, a lot of people don't question it, but in many cases and in many places, you can actually see masonry banks, a megalithic masonry. And you know, they try to tell us all this stuff is natural, like canyons and bluffs. You know, bluffs are bluffs. They're actually man-made infrastructure. And you know, it goes back to ancient times. And this ancient civilization, I believe, existed up until relatively recently, until there was this cataclysm that I believe was man-made, was created in order to take out the civilization and bring in the so-called New World Order. And they just inverted and twisted everything. And you know, it's gotta stop. We gotta come back together and acknowledge the lies that have been told to everybody, and to bring back the truth. And you know, I'm very motivated to do this as long as I'm able to, which hopefully will be the rest of my life.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, you know, this is holding us back, just in general. It's holding back the entire world, because obviously we're not able to truly expand our minds and reach our potential. This is what's being taught at, you know, elementary all the way up to the university level, and
Every
then
time,
you can't.
every time you go to a historic site, every time you go to a museum, it's all the same thing that you're talking about. The lies are just reinforced, and that's why they exist, to tell the story that the establishment wants or wanted told, and it's not real. And you know, again, it's the truth needs to come out, because everything that's happening in the world today is based on the Moors and the original civilization, and what happened as a result of it.
Yes, definitely. Could you put a timeline on the cataclysms? We said mud floods, but
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
yes, cataclysm.
So what I was intuitively guided to, through a series of synchronicities, is I believe that a 3D time loop was created between 1492, with the fall of Granada and Columbus's first voyage, to 1942, which was the midway through World War II, and also when I first started looking into it was the year of the Philadelphia experiment. And I've speculated that the Philadelphia experiment had something to do with it. I can't prove it. But I was able to pull together some interesting occurrences around that idea. And again, it came to me intuitively and synchronistically. So I think there's something to it. But what's even more interesting is that when I looked at the midpoint year of between 1492 and 1942, it lands on 1717. And then I tracked the history from 1717 forward, and I looked at what happened in the years before that, but there was a lot of anomalous activity going on around that period of time. And that was the beginning of the Georgian kings of England, King George the First. It was the end of the House of Stuart, and James Francis Edward Stuart was exiled, first to France and then to Rome, and not allowed to claim the 3 thrones of the British Isles. And I found a portrait of James as a Moor, and I found a whitewashed version of him also. So it was during that period of time that the whole story started to change, but there was a lot of weirdness in dates, numerologically speaking, and 1717 was the year that the Premier Grand Lodge of London was founded. And because I know the connection of the Moors to Masonry, that got my attention. And just a lot of weirdness and stuff moving forward from 1717. So I think there's something to that. And also, since I've done a lot of research since that time, I have a tendency to think that there's a lot of backfilled, fabricated history. And I think real history starts sometime around the 1700s. And when I say real history, I mean what we're given as what happened started sometime in the 1700s. But there was also a lot of other stuff going on during the 19th century. There were a lot of orphans. There's a lot of pieces that really look like the surface population was wiped out, and there were all these kids, and there was also a lot of alcoholism and other things going on. So I've got some idea of what I think took place, but it's not cut and dried because of whatever has taken place here. But I'm saying that because let's say a 200 to 400 year period, I think, is what we're looking at.
Okay. And just for everybody listening, I have a picture up of what looks like the Eye of Providence over the Moorish flag. This is in the tapestry on the ceiling in the Grand Lodge in England, which you mentioned. It's the oldest Grand Lodge in the world. Okay. And so when you go in there, when you look up at the ceiling, you'll see what is obviously the Moorish flag, but they'll tell you no, it's not. It's a coincidence. Okay. So these things are hidden in plain sight all the time. But if you don't have eyes to see and ears to hear, you won't realize what you're really looking at.
Right, exactly. I'm not sure what's going on with the light in my room. I'm sorry about that. It's a little distracting. This is some time of day.
That's fine.
So something definitely happened. And the controllers have just given us a fake history, and people are taught it from cradle to grave, and it's in movies, it's in music, it's in everything. It's in religions. Talking Rothschilds and Rockefellers and DuPonts, and I think Onassis is another one, and maybe Kennedy. I mean, the old names keep popping up in my research around certain things, and they're the ones behind it. Others as well, but they're definitely part of it. And there's a not very happy untold story of what's really been going on here without most people knowing about it, with regards to what's been happening to children and human trafficking and that kind of thing.
Definitely. I wanted to share another image too, just to show you to show everyone some more imagery to go along with what's being spoken on. This image that's on the screen, some of you heard me talk about this before, but this is a small stone. It's only like maybe 12 to 13 inches tall. It's a pyramid built out of stone. It shines under a black light. It has 13 steps, and then the Eye of Providence, just like the one on the US dollar, right? But this was found in Ecuador, okay? And that's not all, though. On the bottom of that structure, it also has a script on there, like it has words, letters. Okay, let me get a close up of that. So on the bottom of this this pyramid, it has a script, and this script has actually been found in different countries. It's been found here in North America. It's been found obviously in Ecuador, in Italy, I believe also in North Africa and other places. Okay, and there's a researcher. His name's Klaus. He's from Germany, and he got a linguist who is a Berber from Mauritania, who is able to translate this script. Okay, and those same people, they have stories of basically of their civilization going through a cataclysm, right? A flood, a worldwide flood. You know, they have stories of Atlantis, basically. Okay, and this is who was able to translate this. I'm just showing this because this is very real. This once again, this was found in Ecuador. It's not a coincidence that it looks like the same 13-step pyramid that's on the US dollar. There's no coincidences.
But not only that, I got a really important lesson from my friend Pharaoh Osiris. And let me share that here real quick. So, okay, I'm going to share my screen. So my friend was wearing a T-shirt that had the Great Seal of the Moors on it. And my friend Anne, so Anne and Osiris and another friend, Polly, and I would go traveling together. And it was helpful to have a Moorish American friend going to these places, as we were all kind of waking up to all this stuff at the same time. And my other two friends, eventually it ended up being too much for them as we got deeper and deeper into it. But we would watch alternative history videos at my house sometimes, or one of the other houses. And Osiris was wearing a T-shirt that had the Great Seal of the Moors on it. And my friend Anne said, "Osiris, why are you wearing an Illuminati T-shirt?" And I just kind of echoed that. I said, "Yeah, Osiris, why are you wearing an Illuminati T-shirt?" He was really a quiet man. He didn't say very much, but I knew he was hot when I got a couple of emails from him after that happened. So it's burned in my brain that this is the Great Seal of the Moors. And so you can see where you got the seal that's on the back of the $1 bill came from. And I've referred to that a couple of times in my blog and videos, because they took a lot.
Yep, and everything's been hidden in our face now the whole time, you know. So it's
Exactly.
like our job is just to open or to lift the veil up a little bit, but it's always been here. You know, we just didn't understand what we were looking at. So it's
Exactly.
always been hidden in plain sight.
And I also wanted to share this canal.
I guess that's the easiest way to get over on people, to get them.
Right. I mean, you train them in what you want them to believe, and don't give them any other information. So this was a canal that I found in Uzbekistan, in Tashkent, which is the capital. And the name of the canal is the Angkor Canal. Angkor. Ankhor Canal in Uzbekistan. And I found this from traveling the alignments, and I learned so much in those journeys. And ask yourself, what is an Angkor Canal doing in Uzbekistan?
Oh yeah, isn't that in Thailand?
Well, that particular one is in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan
Or Cambodia? Cambodia.
But there's an Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
Yeah.
Which is in alignment with the constellation Draco, I believe. This is a canal in a different place with the same name or same sounding name,
Yeah.
which is an Egyptian sounding name.
Uh-huh.
And there, like I said, there's just so much. And I encourage people, just go start looking around your own communities, because I can guarantee you will find things. You just have to look at it with new eyes and start questioning the narrative and question what they tell you about things when they were built and that kind of thing. Because it's there. Courthouses, schools. One of my favorite examples of a high school is El Paso High School. I'm going to pull that up. What they didn't turn into legislative buildings, they turned into schools or theaters or whatever. I mean, look at this place. This is a high school.
Oh, wow. That's in El Paso? Wow.
In El Paso, Texas. And then there's other examples of high schools that are just as elaborate. This is Duluth High School in, let's see. Maybe I should type in Old Central High School in Duluth is what I'm looking for. That was a high school.
Oh, wow.
And so on and so on.
Yeah.
It even had bells in the top.
Wow.
So I said the lies start falling apart when you start looking. And you just have to realize it's all based on lies.
Yeah, I saw also some imagery, I think, that you had like from the World's Fair.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some of the older World Fairs. I don't even know if they do this anymore, but just like in Chicago, maybe in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. So the story that goes along with the World Fair, starting around 1851 and on through probably about 1950. So let's say about 100 years worth of World's Fairs were these beautiful old world buildings that were said to have been temporary constructions for the World's Fair. Whole song and dance story going along with them about how they came into existence. But when you look at the World's Fairs, so you mentioned the Chicago World's Fair. So let me pull that up. They destroyed it all after the fair. So I think what they were doing was they were showcasing what they wanted people to see and taking credit for it. And then it was either stolen or destroyed or hidden away or something. But Chicago used to look like this. And this is just one. I mean, if you look at Omaha, Nebraska, same thing.
And they just, what do they say? This was all made out of plaster? Like,
yeah, plaster, wood. This is in Omaha in 1898. The White City World's Fair in London is another, gorgeous one. And this one was around 19. Okay, here's one of them. So this was in London. All gone. And it's clearly Moorish architecture.
Yeah, and it makes no sense. Why? Even the narrative that we're given it, they did this for show. I guess to impress other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. because it's BS. I'll be nice and use the initials. It's total BS. But they've because it's a gateway subject for this whole topic, they've managed to convince some people that would otherwise not be convinced by putting in like Photoshop pictures of it being constructed when it was supposed to have been constructed and things like that. So they flooded the internet a little bit with that. But I think most people, if you're really, critically thinking about it, will see right through that, because there's no way.
Yeah, just the story that we're given doesn't really make any sense at all, right? As someone just said in the chat, they tell us that Moorish architecture is Roman.
Hi, Matt.
All right. Yeah, so I apologize for that. So yeah, it's definitely like just opening up a can of worms, and especially since we can just walk around. I mean, you can go downtown probably regardless of where you live, whether it's a big town or a city, small town, and you can look at just look at the architecture and some of the maybe like the Catholic churches, or just some of the the, like you said before, the Capitol buildings. The Capitol building in Charleston, West Virginia is immaculate. Like, it has this big huge gold dome, and then of course, like any Capitol building, you go in on the inside, it has all of the sculpture or paintings on the ceiling, and it's incredible. There's a art museum where I'm at. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and you can tell which part of the building is old, and then the new structure. Like, the new structure kind of blends into the old. So half of the building, or maybe less than half of the building's been constructed probably in the last 30 years. And but when you go into the old part, there's and you look up at the ceiling, there's like Egyptian sculptures, like Isis and different Egyptian gods carved in stone, and it's immaculate, right? And then the whole building is like made out of stone. The new part, it's got the minimalist, new architecture style, and it's like, what's going on here?
Right. I said, just look at everything differently, and you'll see what you're seeing. Also, I don't want to forget to mention it, is the whole, hi there, streetcars. They took out the electric streetcar system that was all over the world, and small towns and big towns, and they got it restarted, starting around the 1850s, and I think the official start of the new historical narrative was 1851 with the Crystal Palace exhibition in London. So that was like the first really big World's Fair that we were talking about. So sometime in the 1850s is when you start seeing that that streetcars were being pulled by mules, and then they were able to get it electrified. And they used the streetcars until they got the cars invented and the buses in place, and the gasoline to run them. And then they started dismantling the streetcar systems, and this included incline railways too. Pittsburgh has 2 that are still functioning. A lot of places had incline railways, and they're gone, and the streetcars are long gone too. And I tell people, I mean, just look in your own city and Google historical streetcars in so and so, and they took them out, so they could bring in a new transportation system that they could get wealthy off of, either with the manufacture of the vehicles or the gas needed. How John D. Rockefeller got so wealthy with Standard Oil. They've been making money hand over fist on the system that they put in. And you look at Hollywood and predictive programming, and they're required to tell us what they're doing, but they don't tell us they are telling us. And so we're paying for our own brainwashing every time we go to a movie. It's kind of think of The Matrix as a documentary. There's something really deep in there. And if nothing else, take away from this to start asking questions and looking at things differently, because the lies are
Yes.
off the charts.
Yes, definitely. And like you said, it's funny that, everything is depicted, for us in pop culture. So, maybe there's something karmically with that where, they have to tell what they're doing,
Right.
but
That's my
it's
understanding.
always been right in our eyes. Right. And one thing too, there's an image up here that says Moorish Palace, Chicago World Fair, 1893. And they're telling us that they just made these just out of plaster. They were just built temporarily for show, and it doesn't really make any sense. None of this stuff makes any sense.
Right. And if you look up Wikipedia articles about these World's Fairs and other things like that, you'll have, they'll have a list of all the names of all the people that were involved in it and all that kind of thing. And, so they're telling tales to explain everything. But that's all they are. Cemeteries are interesting places too, I must say. The older ones. Something going on with those too. Not what we're told.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? One thing too, I just wanted to share this image just because it's amazing to see. But like when you were speaking about the cataclysms that happen around the world, you have things like this that exist, and this is obviously ancient. Like there's no cover up about the fact that this is ancient, and that modern archaeologists don't really truly know how it was done. Right. There's I believe this is in the same country that oh my gosh, Petra is in. I
in Jordan.
You have several buildings like this that are just carved out of solid rock, and we don't know. Like you just looking at this, something may have happened that covered this up, or maybe it was just built out of stone, right? But some of these things you look at, I mean, the doorways are humongous, right? You can't really tell because this is a picture, but if you're on the ground, you'll see that the doorway is like 20 or 30 feet high. The ceilings are extremely high. The columns are high. It's like this wasn't even built for normal size humans. And we see this stuff all over the world.
I'm going to share.
And they'll just say, "Oh, are you trying to share something? Let me take that down."
Yeah, let me share. One of my favorite examples is the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. Okay.
Yep.
So you know what story goes along with this one?
What's that?
It was built in between 1932 and 1935. Is what they're telling us. Built between 1932 and 1935. And look at the size of that thing. Besides the fact, you were pointing out the size difference with the old architecture in Jordan. Same idea. This was not built by small people for small people.
Yeah, no way.
And the comment previously about Roman architecture. Yeah, I mean it's all Moorish. And
it's one thing I would just ask is if you were able to do that in the 1930s or before, because some of them they say are older than that in the 1800s, why not do it now?
Exactly.
That's more impressive than some of the things that are being built, not like the new architecture styles. It's like why not just make one just to show that you can actually do it?
I mean, all the stuff I see going up are like plywood and particle board. I don't know about where you live.
Yeah.
And then one of the excuses they give for tearing down the older
Same
masonry is
here.
that
Definitely.
the reason they give more often than not for tearing down the old buildings is that it's dangerous or, you know, in poor repair. And it's like, yeah, right. It's just a very flimsy excuse for getting rid of this. And I think all of this, everything on the built by the Moors was built for a reason and a purpose, you know, like a circuit board. It was serving some kind of function on Earth's energy grid. And
Definitely.
they spent a lot of time dismantling it, but they keep some buildings around. They haven't destroyed them all, but they've destroyed a lot of them. I took a look at some beautiful buildings in Detroit. One's called, I want to say it's called the Guardian Building. The Fisher Building and the Guardian Building.
Yes.
Are just absolutely gorgeous buildings. And I want to give this as an example because most buildings that look like this are gone.
All right.
And so this is the Guardian Building in Detroit.
Wow. Yeah.
And it long gone.
Yeah.
Very rare to see this kind of buildings left standing.
Definitely.
There's another one in Tulsa called the Minx Adams Building. That's also a gorgeous building. This is in Tulsa.
Yeah.
There's some stuff on the top I'm looking for. I don't see it. So it's, this is it. And it was in Oklahoma that I really first started waking up to this. And pieces all started to come together. And without having a Moorish friend, I would not have gotten the piece about the Moors, and I would have been, scratching my head and wondering, like everybody else, who built this?
Yeah, it's definitely it's the missing piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
It's the missing piece of the puzzle, and like you were saying, I think that you have like this power structure now trying to tap into the ancient way of doing things for their own benefit, like not knocking the church, but you have the like what they say is the largest pyramid in the world, I guess by volume, in Mexico. And you have the church built right on top of the pyramid. So somewhere there was an understanding when the Spanish were coming here that, hey, we might not want to excavate this right now, but this is where we need to build our church, because there's a reason why this pyramid was built here.
Right. Right.
And so for most of us, we just would look at that and think it was built on top of a hill.
Right. And I think that story is repeated over and over again. And I even question, I think a lot of the architecture is original architecture and they've just made up a story about it. Also, there was something else that came to mind. I've got so much I could talk about for hours. So I apologize. It's like, there's so much I want to cover. Yeah. I see the comment about growing up in Massachusetts.
All right.
Watching the old city get destroyed. And, again, I think that scenario, has been going on in our lifetimes. I'm 58. I'll be 59 in July. And I grew up in a suburb of Washington, and there were things I started realizing about the area where I grew up. I grew up next to a golf course. I think our house was on top of a flat top pyramid. And these were things that I realized after I started waking up to it. Earthworks all over the place. Golf courses are mounds.
Yeah.
Star forts. That's what I wanted to mention. Star forts are the colonizers made a beeline for the star forts on the alignments. So I've looked at a lot of places where, when the Spanish went in to the Philippines, and I'm finding star forts there. And I think star forts were originally circuitry on the grid system and wasn't military in nature. Yeah, Matt, I agree. I think it's older than that. They've just they tell so many stories about things.
They have so many lies going, they don't even know which lie they told.
Exactly. It's getting to that point, and a lot more people asking the questions than before.
Yeah.
So there's still a lot of people that are asleep to it, but more and more people are looking for answers.
Oh yeah.
And the trick is how to get this out into the mainstream, and hopefully it gets there sooner rather than later.
Oh yeah. So I mean, you can see, like you were saying before, like the push being put out there to try to I guess you could say, to try to push this out to the side, to try to make fun of this, the same way they did with the flat earth thing. They want to lampoon it so that anyone who is even thinking outside the box will automatically like step back, because they don't want to be associated with something that's being painted as crazy, conspiracy. And so I already see that occurring. And I mean, I agree. Like it has to happen. We can't. We're in the age of Aquarius. We can't continue to go on with the lies. I mean, one thing that we can do, that everybody can do. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you go to Michelle's channel and subscribe and share her videos as well. We have to write books. No one's gonna teach it. I mean, they've got it where at the university level, if you want to get published and you want to be accredited and all of these things, like you can't talk about any of this.
It's absolutely critical to get it out. We have no future if we stay stuck in the same old beliefs. I mean, this is an existential threat to all of humanity. What's going on?
I agree.
And so, thankfully, a lot of things are coming together and converging for people to wake up. And a lot of people ask, well, what can we do? And you were just talking about it a lot. It's you just pass it along, and not everybody's ready for it, but a lot of people are. It's not something I can talk about with my family. They're not there. It's like I was the one that lived a very different life, and that was another reason I was able to wake up to it. I've always done things that people didn't expect me to do, and so I haven't lived a conventional life whatsoever.
Yeah, I understand.
So I was able to receive the correct information and the truth, and the universe is more than happy to share, with willing vessels, if you will. It's just waiting to come back out.
Yeah, so I think this is the way to do it. It's got to be a grassroots thing, right? There's not going to be big time commercial, corporate, money behind it, trying to get it out there. So it's got to come from the people. It has to be a movement of the people, with us sharing it and spreading the information amongst each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's waking up. They have to have our consent. And the only way they've gotten our consent is to lie to us. Humanity is a big prize for these guys. And so
and as we start to shift the tide, yeah, and as we start to shift the tide, they're going to have to come correct, because we're the ones who are really in control.
Exactly.
And as we understand that, anyone who's pushing this lie is going to get to that point where anyone who's pushing this, this false narrative, they're going to have to run and hide. They're not going to be able to show their faces. I mean, we're in the new age. This is the time that, it's been written. It's already been deemed. This is what is going on right now. That's why we're here. That's why we're awake. And that's why we're sharing this right now.
I'm so ready for that day. You know,
Yeah,
we are there, and if they don't have our consent, then they can't do it. They have to trick us into thinking they're more powerful than we are,
that's right. Yep.
and it's not true. But if you know, so there's informed consent and tacit consent. So this hasn't been informed consent, but because people have gone along with it, a lot of people have gone along with it. It's deemed as tacit consent, and that's how they've managed to skirt around the, informed part.
That's right. Yep. But I want to commend you on doing a great work. We're doing our part. I can say one thing, like for us here in my household, we have 5 children, and so we're making sure that they're getting this understanding, so that they're not limited, right, in their worldview and what they're able to do. And I think just as we do this, and more of us are teaching our children and sharing this with others as well who are ready for this, it's going to change. And when you're ahead of the curve, you might feel like it's taking forever, but we're right on time.
Yeah, I've been waiting for 9 years. I mean, I really started waking up in I want to say around 2006, 2007 was when I really started waking up, and I was pretty awake by 2012, and I was following the end of the Mayan calendar, and I woke up to a lot more about that. And then between 2012 and 2016 was when I woke up to the ancient civilization, but I also woke up to how dark the dark is and what's been going on here. And
Yeah.
then, got my call to start doing my own work. And, that's taken me to places I never even imagined.
Wow.
And
I
what's
understand.
And what's happened here is that bad. It is that bad. It's
Uh-huh.
worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
worse
criminal.
than that.
Yep. It's criminal. And I think like with all of the things that are going on, I mean, even some of the things that may seem terrible, things like the pandemic and all of these things, they're all serving their purpose to wake more people up. It's making more people start to question their reality and start to think outside the box. So it's happening right now, whether we realize it or not. All right. And definitely. I want to thank you for coming on the show. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Definitely would like to have you back on. I want to ask everyone watching to please share this video, and also make sure you check out Michelle's channel. All of her links are in the description. Make sure you go over there and subscribe as well. And did you have any parting words that you would like to say?
Like I said, I've got so much more inside me. So we just kind of hit the surface, and I really go into depth with a lot of the things that I've talked about, examples of like the river systems and the canals and how they have the snaky shape. And I think that has to do with some kind of engineering reason that they're like that. And, it's just my honor and pleasure to be here. So thank you.
All right. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. This has been a great show. Everybody, make sure you hit like and share. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you all for attending. Peace and love. Make sure you hit the like button.
Thank you all very much.
All right.